The morning sun painted the jungle of Verdania in shades of green that Earth had never seen. Dr. Kim Day wiped sweat from his forehead as he looked at his tablet screen. The numbers made no sense. Plants here grew 3 times faster than they should. The air held more oxygen than any human world. Even the soil seemed alive with strange energy. "Dr. Kim, you need to see this," called out his assistant, Bai Suho. The young man pointed toward a massive tree that had not been there yesterday. Its trunk was wider than their research station and its leaves shimmered like metal in the sunlight. Kim Day shook his head. After 6 months on Verdania, he still could not believe how quickly this world changed. The human colony had been built in what they thought was a stable clearing. Now vines covered half their buildings and new species appeared every day. "Get samples from the bark," Kim Day told Suho. "But stay close to the station. Director Lee wants everyone within safety range." The research station buzzed with activity. 20 scientists worked to understand this new world before the main colony ships arrived from Earth. They had been the first humans to set foot on Verdania, and their job was to make sure it was safe for families. So far, they had found no large predators. The biggest creatures were bird-like animals that sang beautiful songs. Fish swam in crystal-clear streams. Everything seemed peaceful and perfect for human settlement. Park Min thought differently. The colony's head of security stood at the edge of the clearing, his hand resting on his weapon. His dark eyes searched the jungle for threats that others could not see. 20 years of military service had taught him to trust his instincts, and his instincts screamed danger. "Something is watching us," he told his second-in-command, Sergeant Nam Ho. "I can feel it." Nam Ho was younger and less experienced. He looked at the peaceful jungle and saw only beauty. "Maybe you need rest, sir. We have been here 6 months, no attacks, no dangerous animals. The worst thing we found was those purple berries that made Dr. Song sick." Park Min did not answer. He had felt eyes on him since their first day on Verdania. Not animal eyes, something smarter, something that waited and planned. Inside the research station, Director Lee Hana worked at her desk. She was responsible for everything that happened on Verdania. Every decision, every life, every success or failure. The weight of leadership sat heavy on her shoulders. The colony on Verdania was humanity's greatest achievement. They had traveled farther from Earth than ever before. They had found a world that could support millions of people. In 2 years, the first colony ships would arrive with 10,000 settlers, but first they had to prove it was safe. "Director Lee," Kim Day called as he entered her office. "We have a problem." She looked up from her reports. Kim Day was usually calm and quiet. Now his face showed worry. "What kind of problem?" "The ecosystem is changing too fast. Plants are growing overnight. New species appear every day. It is like the jungle is responding to our presence." Lee Hana frowned. "Responding how?" "I think it is trying to understand us, or maybe test us." Before Lee Hana could respond, alarms began blaring through the station. The emergency lights flashed red. Over the intercom, Park Min's voice crackled with urgency. "All personnel to emergency stations. We have a situation at the north perimeter." Lee Hana and Kim Day ran outside. The other scientists followed. The north edge of the clearing, they found Park Min and his security team gathered around something that made no sense. 5 trees had been cut down, not by human tools. The cuts were too clean, too precise. Each tree had been sliced through as if by a blade sharper than any metal. The fallen trees formed a pattern that looked almost like a message. "When did this happen?" Lee Hana asked. "Between 15 minutes ago and now," Park Min replied. Nam Ho was watching this area. He saw nothing, heard nothing. Then the trees were down. Kim Day knelt beside one of the cut trunks. The wood was still warm. Sap ran from the cut like blood from a wound. "This is impossible. It would take heavy machinery to cut through wood this thick. And there are no saw marks, no burn marks, nothing." "Maybe it was some kind of natural event," suggested Dr. Song, the colony's botanist. "These trees might have natural weak points. Weather could have caused them to fall." Park Min shook his head. "Trees do not fall in perfect patterns, and they do not fall silently." As they studied the fallen trees, Suho called out from the other side of the clearing. "Everyone come here. You need to see this." They found him standing beside their equipment shed. Deep gouges marked the metal walls. 4 parallel lines ran from the ground to the roof. Each mark was as wide as a human finger but deeper than any knife could cut. "Claw marks," Parkman said quietly. "But from what animal?" Kim Dae measured the marks with his tablet. Based on the size and spacing, the creature would have to be enormous, bigger than any predator on Earth. The team stood in silence. The peaceful jungle suddenly felt different, dangerous. They could feel something watching them from the shadows between the trees. "Everyone back to the station," Lee Hana ordered. "Now." As they walked back, Nam Ho asked the question they were all thinking. What kind of animal could make marks like that? Park Min checked his weapon and scanned the jungle. "I do not know, but I am going to find out." That night, as the humans slept in their station, Red Eyes watched them from the darkness. The creature moved without sound through the jungle. It had been studying these strange newcomers for months, learning their habits, testing their defenses. The humans were different from other animals. They used tools and fire. They changed their environment instead of adapting to it. They were dangerous, in ways the creature had never seen before. But they were also weak, soft, slow. They could not see in the dark. They could not smell danger. They could not hear the whispers of the jungle. The creature with the red eyes had decided. These humans were a threat to its world. They had to be dealt with before they could spread their influence further. The hunt would begin tomorrow. In the station, Park Min stood at a window, unable to sleep. He could feel those watching eyes even through the metal walls. His instincts had been right. Something dangerous lived in this jungle, something that wanted them gone. The war for Verdania was about to begin. Park Min had not slept for 3 days. Dark circles shadowed his eyes as he studied the map of the jungle surrounding their research station. Red marks showed where they had found signs of the creature. Claw marks on trees. Strange tracks in the mud. Equipment that had been moved or destroyed during the night. "We need to take action," he told Director Lee Hana during the morning briefing. "This thing is getting bolder. Last night it came within 50 meters of the main building." Lee Hana looked at the security footage on her tablet. The cameras showed nothing but darkness and swaying trees, yet their motion sensors had detected something large moving through the perimeter. "What do you suggest?" she asked. "Hunting parties. Small teams with heavy weapons. We track it down before it decides to attack directly." Dr. Kim Dae shook his head. "We do not even know what we are dealing with. It could be intelligent, it could be trying to communicate." "It is trying to communicate," Park Min replied coldly. "It is telling us to leave. And if we do not listen, it will make us leave." Namho raised his hand. "Sir, what if Dr. Kim is right? What if we are misunderstanding its intentions?" Park Min turned to face his young sergeant. "Then explain the claw marks. Explain why it watches us every night. Explain why it destroyed our backup generator." The room fell silent. Everyone remembered the morning they had found their generator torn apart. The damage was too precise to be random. Someone or something had known exactly what it was doing. "I will organize the first hunting party," Park Min announced. 6 men, full combat gear. We leave at dawn." Kim Dae stood up. "I want to come with you." "Absolutely not. You are a scientist, not a soldier. I need to study this creature. If we are going to fight it, we need to understand it first." After much debate, Lee Hana made the decision. Kim Dae would join the hunting party, but he would stay back while the soldiers did their work. The next morning, 7 men entered the jungle. Park Min led the way, his weapon ready. Behind him walked Nam Ho and 4 other security officers. Kim Dae brought up the rear, carrying scanning equipment instead of guns. The jungle was different in the morning light. Beautiful but dangerous. Vines hung like ropes from massive trees. Flowers bloomed in colors that had no names. Strange birds called from the canopy above. "The tracks lead this way," Park Min said, pointing to marks in the soft earth. "The creatures, Footprints were huge, with long claw marks extending from each toe. They followed the trail for 2 hours. The tracks led deeper into the jungle, away from any area the humans had explored before. The trees grew larger and closer together. The air became thick and humid. "Sir," whispered Nam Ho, "do you hear that?" They stopped and listened. From somewhere, ahead came a low rumbling sound, not quite a growl, not quite a purr, something in between that made their skin crawl. Park Min signaled for the team to spread out. They moved forward carefully, weapons raised. The rumbling grew louder. Then they saw it. The creature stood in a clearing ahead of them. It was massive, easily twice the size of the largest tiger on Earth. Its fur was black as midnight, but when light hit it, colors danced across its surface like oil on water. Its eyes glowed red in the shadows. But the most shocking thing was what it was doing. The creature was not hunting. It was not eating. It was standing perfectly still, watching them, as if it had been waiting for them to find it. "Take the shot," Park Min whispered to his men. Before anyone could fire, the creature did something impossible. It stepped backward and vanished. Not into the jungle. Not behind a tree. It simply faded away like smoke. "Where did it go?" Nam Ho asked, spinning in a circle. Kim Dae checked his scanner. "It is still here. The readings show it is right in front of us." The creature reappeared 5 meters to their left. Then it vanished again and reappeared behind them. It was playing with them, showing them that their weapons were useless. "Fall back," Park Min ordered. "Move to the rally point." As they retreated, the creature followed. Always just out of sight. Always just beyond their weapons' range. It made no aggressive moves, but its presence was more terrifying than any attack. When they reached the research station, Park Min called an emergency meeting. "It can phase through solid matter," he reported. "Our weapons cannot hit something that is not fully solid." "That is impossible," Dr. Song protested. "No living creature can alter its molecular structure." Kim Dae looked at his scanner data. The reading suggested it exists in multiple dimensions at once. It chooses when to be solid and when to be incorporeal. Lee Hana felt a chill run down her spine. "So our defenses are useless." "Not useless," Park Min said, "but we need a new strategy." Over the following days, Park Min organized more hunting parties. Each one ended the same way. The creature would appear, demonstrate its abilities, and then vanish. It was toying with them, studying them, learning their tactics. Dr. Kim Dae began to notice patterns in the creature's behavior. It never attacked during the day. It only appeared when they were armed and ready for combat. It seemed to be testing their responses rather than trying to harm them. "I think it is trying to understand us," he told Lee Hana, "the same way we are trying to understand it." "Then why does it destroy our equipment? Why does it leave claw marks on our buildings?" "Maybe it is trying to communicate. Maybe those marks mean something." Park Min disagreed. "It is a predator. It is learning our weaknesses so it can strike when we are vulnerable." The creature's nighttime visits became more frequent. It would appear at the edge of their clearing, watch them for hours, then disappear before dawn. The colonists began to fear the darkness. They installed more lights, more sensors, more defenses. Nothing worked. The creature could phase through their barriers like they were made of air. It could avoid their motion sensors by existing in a different dimension. It could watch them without being seen. As the weeks passed, the psychological pressure began to take its toll. The colonists jumped at every sound. They saw red eyes in every shadow. Sleep became impossible. "We need to evacuate," Dr. Song suggested during one particularly difficult meeting. "This creature has made it clear we are not welcome here." "We cannot abandon the colony," Lee Hana replied. "Too much depends on our success here." "What success?" Park Min asked bitterly. "We are prisoners in our own base. We cannot explore. We cannot expand. We cannot even sleep peacefully." Kim Dae looked at his research notes. 6 months of studying the creature had taught him one thing. It was far more intelligent than any animal had a right to be. "I think it is waiting for something," he said quietly. "Waiting for what?" "I do not know." but I think we are about to find out. Outside, Red Eyes watched from the jungle. The creature had learned everything it needed to know about these strange visitors. Soon, it would make its final move. 6-year-old Choi Yuna pressed her face against the window of her family's quarters. The glass felt cool against her cheek as she watched the jungle beyond the research station. While the adults worried and planned and argued, Yuna found the mysterious creature fascinating rather than frightening. Her father, Choi Jun, worked as the colony's chief engineer. He spent his days fixing the equipment that kept breaking down, reinforcing the barriers that never seemed strong enough, and installing new security systems that the creature ignored completely. "Yuna, come away from the window," her father said, as he entered their small living space. His work clothes were dirty from crawling under machinery all day. "It is not safe to look outside after dark." "But I want to see the pretty cat," Yuna replied, not moving from her position. June frowned. "What cat?" "The big cat with the glowing eyes. It comes to visit every night." Her father's face went pale. He quickly moved to the window and pulled the curtains closed. "Yuna, that is not a cat. That is a dangerous animal. You must never go near it." "But it looks sad," Yuna protested. "It just sits there watching us. It never tries to hurt anyone. It has hurt people. It destroyed our equipment. It threatens our safety." Yuna shook her head with the stubborn certainty that only children possess. "No, Daddy, it is just lonely. Like when we first moved here, and I missed my friends from Earth." June knelt down to his daughter's level. "Promise me you will stay away from the windows at night. Promise me you will never try to go outside alone. I promise," Yuna said, but her fingers were crossed behind her back. That night, after her father had gone back to work on the failing power grid, Yuna returned to her window. She carefully pulled back just a corner of the curtain and peered outside. The creature was there, as it always was. It sat at the edge of the clearing like a giant cat, its red eyes glowing in the darkness. But while the adult saw a monster, Yuna saw something different. She saw the way it held its head, tilted slightly to one side as if it was listening to something far away. She saw how its tail moved slowly back and forth, not in anger but in what looked like sadness. She saw how it never came closer to the buildings where families lived, only to the areas where soldiers and scientists worked. "You are not mean at all," she whispered to the glass. "You are just misunderstood." The creature's ears twitched. Its glowing eyes turned toward her window. For a moment, Yuna was sure it was looking directly at her. She waved her small hand. The creature tilted its head further as if confused by the gesture. During the day, Yuna listened to the adults talk about their plans. Park Min wanted to use bigger weapons. Dr. Kim wanted to try communicating with light signals. Director Lee wanted to build stronger barriers. None of them considered that maybe the creature was trying to understand them just as much as they were trying to understand it. "What if it is friendly?" Yuna asked during dinner one evening. The adults at the table looked at her with surprise. Dr. Kim was eating with their family because the cafeteria's food processor had broken down again. "What makes you think it might be friendly?" Kim asked gently. "It never hurts the children's area. It only breaks things in the workplaces. Maybe it is trying to get the grown-ups to pay attention." "Pay attention to what?" her father asked. "To the fact that it wants to be friends." Dr. Kim leaned forward, suddenly interested. "That is actually not a bad theory. Many Earth animals use displays of strength to communicate, not to threaten." "It is not an Earth animal," June reminded him. "We have no idea what it is thinking, or what it wants. But children often see things that adults miss," Kim said thoughtfully. "Maybe we have been approaching this wrong." That night, Yuna made a decision. She waited until her father was asleep, then carefully opened their door. The research station was quiet except for the humming of machinery. Security lights cast long shadows down the hallways. She had spent months watching her father work. She knew which corridors led to the exits. She knew the codes for the doors because she had seen him enter them dozens of times. She knew the pattern of the security patrols. Most importantly, she knew that the creature only appeared at the north edge of the clearing. If she went to the south exit, she could observe it from a safe distance. Yuna slipped through the corridors, like a small ghost. The automated systems were designed to detect large threats, not 6-year-old children. She reached the south exit without triggering any alarms. The jungle at night was nothing like the scary place the adults described. It was full of soft sounds and gentle lights. Bioluminescent flowers glowed along the pathways. Night birds sang lullabies in the trees. The air smelled sweet with the scent of blooming vines. Yuna walked to the edge of the clearing and sat down on a fallen log. From here she could see the creature clearly. It was even more beautiful than she had imagined. Its fur seemed to absorb and reflect light at the same time, creating patterns that shifted and changed like living art. Its eyes were not angry or threatening. They were intelligent and curious. The creature was watching the research station with the same fascination that Yuna watched it. "You are lonely too," she said softly. The creature's ears twitched again. It turned its massive head toward her, and Yuna felt no fear. In fairy tales, this was the moment when the monster would roar and charge. But this creature simply looked at her with what seemed like surprise. "It is okay," Yuna continued. "I am lonely sometimes too. It is hard being the only kid here. I bet it is hard being the only one of you." The creature stood up slowly. It was enormous, much larger than Yuna had realized. But instead of approaching her, it took a step backward, as if it was afraid of frightening her. "You do not want to hurt anyone," Yuna said with sudden understanding. "You just want to know why we came to your home." The creature made a sound. That was not quite a growl and not quite a purr. It sounded almost like a question. "We came because our old home was getting too crowded. We needed a new place to live, but we do not want to take your home away from you. We want to share it." The creature tilted its head, listening intently to every word. "Tomorrow I will tell the grown-ups that you are nice. I will tell them you just want to be friends." But before Yuna could say anything more, bright lights suddenly flooded the clearing. Security alarms began blaring. Heavy boots pounded across the ground as Park Min and his team came running. "Yuna, get away from that thing," Park Min shouted, raising his weapon. The creature looked at the approaching soldiers, then back at Yuna. For just a moment she saw something like disappointment in its glowing eyes. Then it faded away, leaving only empty air, and the memory of intelligence that wanted to understand rather than destroy. "You could have been killed," Park Min said as he reached her. "What were you thinking?" "I was thinking that maybe we are the scary ones," Yuna replied as her father came running to embrace her. As they led her back to the station, Yuna looked over her shoulder at the spot where the creature had been. She knew it was still there, watching from somewhere beyond their sight, and she knew that tomorrow she would find a way to finish their conversation. The next evening brought another thunderstorm to Verdania. Lightning split the sky while rain pounded against the research station's metal roof. Inside, the adults held another emergency meeting about Yuna's encounter with the creature. "She could have been killed," Director Lee said for the 10th time. "We need better security, better locks, better monitoring." "She is just a child," Dr. Kim replied. "Children do not understand danger the way adults do." "That is exactly the problem," Park Min added. "She sees a monster and thinks it is a pet." Yuna sat in the corner of the meeting room, supposedly reading a book but actually listening to every word. The adults talked about her as if she was not there. They talked about the creature as if it was just a mindless animal. But Yuna remembered the intelligence in those red eyes. She remembered how the creature had stepped back to avoid frightening her. She remembered the sadness in its voice when it made that strange purring sound. "I want to try a different approach," Dr. Kim announced. "What if Yuna is right? What if this creature is trying to communicate?" "It communicates by destroying our equipment," Park Min replied coldly. "But it has never actually hurt anyone. All the damage has been to machinery, not people. Maybe that is significant." Her father, Choi Jun, looked up from his repair reports. "The damage is always precise, never random. It targets specific systems, communication arrays, power generators, security sensors. Like it wants to disable our technology," Kim said, thoughtfully. "Or like it wants us to rely on something other than machines," Yuna said quietly. The adults turned to look at her, She had not meant to speak, but the words had come out anyway. "What do you mean?" Lee asked. "Maybe it wants us to talk to it directly, without computers and weapons and barriers." The room fell silent. Outside, thunder rolled across the jungle. "That is too dangerous," Parkman said finally. "We will not risk anyone's life on a child's guess," but Dr. Kim was nodding slowly. "Actually, it makes sense. Many intelligent species prefer direct contact over technological mediation." "This discussion is over," Lee declared. "No one is making contact with that creature. End of debate." After the meeting, Yuna was confined to her family's quarters. Her father installed additional locks on their door and programmed the computer to alert him if she tried to leave. But Choi Jun had taught his daughter well. She knew how machines worked. She knew that every system had weaknesses. And she knew that sometimes the simplest solutions were the best ones. At midnight, while her father slept, Yuna carefully removed the air vent cover above her bed. The maintenance shafts were too small for adults, but perfect for a small child. She crawled through the metal tunnels until she reached the main air recycling unit. From there, she could access the emergency exits that bypassed all the electronic security systems. These exits were designed to work even during power failures, which meant they relied on simple mechanical locks instead of computers. Yuna slipped out into the storm. The rain soaked through her clothes within seconds, but she did not care. Lightning illuminated the jungle in brief, brilliant flashes. The creature was not at its usual watching post at the north edge of the clearing. "Where are you?" she called out into the storm. "I want to talk to you." Thunder drowned out her small voice. She walked deeper into the jungle, following the path she had seen the creature use. The rain made everything slippery and dangerous, but Yuna was determined. She found the creature in a grove of luminescent trees about half a kilometer from the research station. It was not watching the human settlement. Instead, it sat beside what looked like a small shrine made of polished stones and glowing crystals. The creature looked up as Yuna approached. Its red eyes reflected the lightning, but there was no threat in its gaze. Only surprise and something that might have been hope. "I knew you would be here," Yuna said, sitting down on a fallen log just outside the grove. "This is your special place, is it not?" The creature made that strange purring sound again. Up close, Yuna could hear that it was more complex than she had realized. There were tones and harmonics that almost sounded like words. "You are trying to talk to me," she said with wonder. "But I do not understand your language." The creature stood up and moved closer. It was even more magnificent than Yuna had imagined. Its fur seemed to absorb the light from the glowing trees and transform it into new colors. Its movements were graceful and precise like a dancer. When it was just a few meters away, it stopped and lowered its massive head toward her. "You really are pretty," Yuna said, reaching out her hand. The creature froze. Its phasing ability flickered and failed. For the first time since the humans had arrived on Verdania, it was completely solid, completely vulnerable. But instead of taking advantage of this weakness, Yuna simply smiled. "It is okay," she said gently. "I am not going to hurt you. I just want to be friends." She giggled then, not from nervousness, but from pure joy. Here was this amazing creature that everyone feared, and it was allowing her to pet it like a giant cat. The sound of her laughter seemed to break something inside the creature. Its red eyes grew dim for a moment, then brightened with a different light. Not the harsh glow of a predator, but the warm radiance of intelligence recognizing intelligence. It moved closer and very carefully touched its nose to Yuna's outstretched hand. The moment of contact sent a shock through both of them. Not painful, but electric with understanding. Suddenly, Yuna could sense what the creature was feeling. Loneliness that stretched back centuries. Confusion about these strange new visitors. Fear that its world was changing beyond recognition. And beneath it all, a desperate hope that maybe, finally, it had found someone who could understand. "You have been alone for so long," Yuna whispered. "But you do not have to be alone anymore." The creature settled down beside her, careful not to crush her with its massive bulk. For the first time in months, it felt something other than wariness and suspicion. It felt peace. They sat together in the grove while the storm raged around them. Lightning illuminated their unlikely friendship, while thunder provided a soundtrack to the moment that would change everything. Neither of them noticed the approaching footsteps until it was too late. Yuna, step away from that thing right now. Park Min stood at the edge of the grove, his weapon raised and ready. Behind him came Dr. Kim, Director Lee, and a full squad of security officers. The creature immediately tensed, its peaceful expression shifting back to wariness. But it did not move away from Yuna. Instead, it positioned itself protectively between her and the armed humans. "It is not going to hurt me," Yuna said firmly. "It is my friend." "Friends do not have claws that can tear through steel," Park Min replied. "Now move away so we can deal with this situation." "No," Yuna said, standing up and spreading her arms wide in front of the creature. "If you want to hurt it, you will have to hurt me first." The creature looked down at this small human child who was trying to protect it from her own kind. Something shifted in its ancient heart. For the first time in its very long life, it felt what humans called love. And in that moment, everything changed. The standoff in the grove lasted for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Park Min kept his weapon trained on the creature while Yuna stood protectively in front of it. Dr. Kim watched with scientific fascination as the massive predator that had terrorized them for months remained perfectly still, unwilling to move in any way that might endanger the child. "Yuna, please," Director Lee said gently. "Come away from there. Let us handle this." "You do not understand," Yuna replied with the absolute certainty of childhood. "It does not want to fight anymore. It just wants to belong somewhere." The creature made a low rumbling sound that was not quite a growl, but instead of sounding threatening, it sounded almost like agreement. Dr. Kim lowered his scanner and took a step forward. "Park Min, lower your weapon. Are you insane? Look at it. Really, look at it. When has it ever acted aggressively when Yuna was present?" Park Min kept his rifle raised, but he did observe the creature more carefully. It could have phased away at any moment. It could have disappeared and reappeared behind them. Instead, it remained solid and vulnerable, focused entirely on protecting the small human child. "It is not behaving like a predator," Dr. Kim continued. "It is behaving like a guardian." "Exactly," Yuna said, turning to face the adults while keeping one hand on the creature's massive paw. "It was never trying to hurt us. It was trying to protect its home. But it does not want to fight us. It wants to understand us." The creature's red eyes shifted from person to person, studying their faces and body language. When its gaze met Dr. Kim's, the scientist felt a jolt of recognition. There was intelligence there. Deep, ancient intelligence that had been watching and learning. "Can you understand us?" Kim asked directly. The creature tilted its massive head and made a series of complex sounds. Not quite words, but clearly an attempt at communication. "It is trying to learn our language," Yuna explained. "Just like we were trying to learn about it. But nobody was being patient enough to listen." Choi Jun pushed through the group of security officers. His face showed relief and terror in equal measure as he saw his daughter standing safely beside the creature that had haunted their nightmares. "Yuna, you could have been killed," he said, kneeling down to embrace her. "No, Daddy. It would never hurt me. Watch." She turned to the creature and held up her hand. The massive being carefully lowered its head and touched its nose to her palm. The contact was gentle, almost reverent. "See? It knows I am just a little girl. It knows I am not dangerous." "But we pointed weapons at it," Park Min said, finally, lowering his rifle. "We hunted it. We tried to kill it." "Because you were scared," Yuna replied with the simple wisdom that only children possess. But it was scared too. It did not know why we came to its world. It did not know if we wanted to hurt everything it cared about. Dr. Kim activated his recording equipment. "This is incredible. We are witnessing first contact with a truly intelligent alien species." "Not alien," Yuna corrected. "This is its home. We are the aliens here." The truth of her words hit everyone at the same time. They had been so focused on establishing their colony that they had never considered they might be intruding on someone else's territory. "The shrine?" Kim said suddenly, looking at the arrangement of stones and crystals behind the creature. "That is not natural. It built that." "It built it for others like itself," Yuna explained. "But they are gone now. It has been alone for a very long time." The creature made another series of complex sounds, and this time there was unmistakable sadness in its voice. "What happened to the others?" Director Lee asked gently. The creature looked at Yuna, as if asking her to translate. She listened carefully to its vocalizations, not understanding the words but somehow comprehending the emotions behind them. "They left when the planet started changing. The jungle grew too fast, the weather became too wild. Only this one stayed behind to guard their special places. It is a caretaker," Kim realized. "It has been protecting this ecosystem, trying to maintain the balance. And we came along and started changing everything," Lee added quietly. Park. Min holstered his weapon completely. "So what do we do now?" The creature looked directly at him and made what sounded almost like a question. "I think it is asking the same thing," Yuna said. "It wants to know if we can share this world without fighting." Director Lee stepped forward slowly. The creature watched her approach but did not retreat. "We came here because we needed a new home," she said, speaking directly to the creature. "Our old world was dying. We are not conquerors, we are refugees." The creature listened intently, its red eyes focused on her face. "If you will allow us to stay, we promise to respect your world. We will work with you instead of against you." The creature was silent for a long moment. Then it stood up to its full impressive height and walked to the shrine. It picked up one of the glowing crystals and brought it back to Lee. "It is offering you a gift," Yuna explained. "In its culture, sharing sacred objects means accepting someone into your family." Lee took the crystal with trembling hands. It was warm to the touch and pulsed with its own inner light. "Thank you," she said. "We are honored to be part of your family." The creature made a sound that was unmistakably pleased. Then it did something none of them expected. It began to purr, not the threatening rumble they had heard before, but a deep, contented sound that filled the grove with peace. "What should we call you?" Yuna asked. The creature considered this question seriously. Then it touched the crystal in Lee's hands and made a specific sound. "Ruby," Yuna said with sudden understanding. "Your name is Ruby because of your beautiful red eyes and the crystals you guard." Ruby purred louder, clearly pleased with the name. Over the following weeks, everything changed at the research colony. Ruby became their guide to Verdania's mysteries. It showed them which plants were safe to eat and which ones were dangerous. It taught them to read the weather patterns that had been so unpredictable. It introduced them to other creatures of the jungle that had been hiding from the human invaders. The colonists learned that Verdania was not empty wilderness but a carefully maintained ecosystem. Ruby and its vanished people had been its gardeners for thousands of years. The rapid plant growth, the strange weather patterns, the shifting landscape, all of it was part of a complex system designed to keep the world in perfect balance. "We need to change our entire approach," Dr. Kim told the Colony Council. "We cannot just build here. We need to become part of the system." "Ruby can teach us," Yuna added. She had become the unofficial translator between human and creature, spending hours each day learning Ruby's complex language of sounds and gestures. Park Min, once Ruby's greatest enemy, became one of its strongest allies. The soldiers' protective instincts resonated with Ruby's role as guardian. They worked together to patrol the expanded colony boundaries, watching for dangers that threatened both humans and the jungle ecosystem. The first colony ships from Earth arrived 6 months later to find something unprecedented. Instead of a sterile human settlement carved out of hostile wilderness, they found a thriving community that worked in harmony with the alien environment. Children played safely in gardens tended by both human hands and Ruby's careful guidance. Scientists worked alongside their massive partner to unlock the secrets of sustainable living. Engineers designed buildings that grew with the jungle instead of fighting against it. "How did you do it?" asked Captain Seo Jin, commander of the first colony ship. The report said this world was inhabited by a dangerous predator. Director Lee smiled as she watched Yuna teaching a group of newly arrived children how to communicate with Ruby. We learned that sometimes the scariest-looking things are just lonely and misunderstood, and sometimes all it takes to make peace is a child brave enough to say you are pretty instead of running away. Ruby, hearing its favorite phrase, looked over at them and made the happy purring sound that had become the unofficial anthem of New Verdania. The creature that had once been the terror of the jungle was now its beloved guardian. And the humans, who had once been afraid of the dark, now looked forward to the evenings when Ruby would visit the settlement to share stories of the world they were all learning to call home. In the end, humanity's greatest victory was not conquest, but friendship. Not in taking a world, but in being accepted into one. And it all began with a little girl who saw beauty where others saw only danger, and who giggled instead of screaming when she met the red-eyed cat that feared nothing except being alone. The jungle no longer feared the red-eyed cat. And the red-eyed cat no longer feared the jungle's newest children. They had all found family in the most unexpected place.